The sky bought out. A world where the rich own the weather, and one woman fights to steal it back. Part 1. The storm had been raging for 9 hours when Dr. Mara Elling finally reached the ridge. Wind clawed at her coat, ripping at the seams, and the rain came sideways, needles of cold slicing across her cheeks. She dug her boots into the mud, each step a battle against the slope's treacherous pull. The valley below was a churning sea of floodwater, rooftops barely visible beneath the rising brown tide. Above her, the sky was a fractured mosaic, violent thunderheads boiling over the public zones, while just beyond the invisible border, the clouds broke cleanly into a serene dome of blue. The contrast was obscene. On one side, nature unleashed its fury. On the other, a billionaire's estate basked in curated sunlight, its manicured gardens glowing like a postcard. Mara wiped the rain from her eyes and stared at the shimmering boundary line. It was faint, like heat distortion, but unmistakable. The weather rights partition, the atmospheric firewall that separated the privileged microclimates from the rest of the world. She hated it. She hated what it represented. And tonight she intended to break it. Her portable terminal buzzed at her hip. She pulled it out, shielding the screen from the rain with her hand. A message flashed. Jace, you're close. The uplink node is 40 meters ahead. You'll see the tower once you crest the ridge. She typed back with numb fingers. Mara, storm's worse than predicted. Did they amplify it? A pause. Then, Jace, yes, they know someone's out here. Move fast. Mara cursed under her breath. The Sky Consortium, the cartel of ultra-wealthy climate owners, had grown paranoid in recent months. Rumors of sabotage had circulated through underground channels, whispers of rogue climatologists attempting to redistribute rainfall, disrupt drought patterns, or collapse the artificial weather walls. Mara herself had helped spread some of those rumors, hoping to distract from her real plan. Now they were reacting, intensifying storms, deploying drones, tightening surveillance. She shoved the terminal back into her coat and pushed forward. The ridge leveled out into a narrow plateau. Lightning cracked overhead, illuminating the skeletal silhouette of a communications tower. It rose from the mud like a rusted spine, its antennae flickering with intermittent power. This was one of the old public sector nodes, abandoned after the privatization wave, left to rot when the government sold off atmospheric control rights to the highest bidders. But the tower still had a heartbeat, a faint, flickering pulse of connectivity. Enough for what she needed. Mara approached the base, her boots sinking into the muck. She knelt beside the access panel, pried it open with a multi-tool, and exposed a tangle of corroded wiring. She connected her terminal with a cable, watching as the screen lit up with diagnostic data. Node status: degraded security. Protocols: legacy atmospheric. Control link: dormant override. Potential high. Good. She exhaled, steadying her breath. Her hands trembled, not from the cold, but from the weight of what she was about to do. Redistribute rainfall. Break the monopoly. Force the sky to belong to everyone again. It wouldn't last. The consortium would retaliate. They would hunt her. They would restore their perfect weather bubbles within hours. But for a moment, just a moment, people would feel rain where they hadn't in years. Parched farmland would drink. Reservoirs would fill. Children in drought zones would see clouds again. A moment was enough. She began typing commands, her fingers dancing across the interface. The tower hummed, its ancient circuits awakening. Data streamed across the screen: weather patterns, pressure gradients, temperature maps. She bypassed the outdated firewalls, slipping through cracks left by decades of neglect. Thunder boomed overhead. The terminal flashed a warning. Unauthorized access detected. Mara froze. Then another message appeared, this one from Jace. Jace, they're onto you. 2 consortium drones inbound. You have maybe 5 minutes. She swallowed hard. Her pulse quickened. 5 minutes to rewrite the sky. She typed faster. 2 hours earlier. The underground bunker smelled of damp concrete and old electronics. Jace paced beside the central console, his dark hair tied back, his eyes flicking nervously between screens. Mara stood at the table, reviewing the atmospheric schematics one last time. "You're sure the node will hold?" Jace asked. "No," Mara said. "But it doesn't have to hold. It just has to wake up long enough to push the override." "And then what?" he pressed. "Then the rain falls where it should." Jace sighed. "You know they'll come after you. They already are." He stopped pacing. "Mara, you don't have to do this alone." She looked up at him. His expression was earnest, worried. He had always been the cautious one, the planner, the strategist. She was the storm. "I do," she said softly. "If they catch you, the movement loses its voice. If they catch me, they lose a nuisance. That's not how I see you." She smiled faintly. "I know." Jace stepped closer. "At least let me send someone with you." "No. The fewer people involved, the better." He hesitated, then nodded reluctantly. "Fine, but I'll guide you remotely. I'll monitor the drones, the weather patterns, everything." "Good." She folded the schematics and slipped them into her pack. The bunker lights flickered as the storm outside intensified. Jace watched her with a mixture of admiration and fear. "You're about to change the sky," he said. Mara paused at the door. "No, I'm about to remind people it belongs to them." Back on the ridge. The drones appeared as dark shapes slicing through the rain, their rotors barely audible over the storm's roar. Mara didn't look up. She kept typing, her fingers moving with desperate precision. The terminal displayed a new prompt: atmospheric partition control, locked. Override sequence, initiated. Time to completion, 3:47. 3 minutes and 47 seconds. She could hear the drones now, high-pitched whines cutting through the thunder. They were close. Her terminal buzzed. "Jace, they're armed. Non-lethal, but enough to incapacitate you. You need to move." "I can't," she muttered. "Not yet." She typed another command. The tower groaned, its metal frame vibrating as the override sequence accelerated. The sky above flickered, clouds shifting unnaturally, as if tugged by invisible strings. The drones descended, their searchlights slicing through the darkness. Mara ducked instinctively, shielding the terminal with her body. A synthesized voice boomed from above. "Cease activity. You are in violation of Sky Consortium property rights." Mara ignored it. The drones hovered closer. "Cease activity. This is your final warning." She typed faster. The terminal beeped. Override sequence 212. Lightning flashed. The drones opened fire, nets of electrified filament shooting toward her. Mara rolled aside, the nets crackling as they hit the mud. She scrambled back to the terminal, her hands shaking. Another message from Jace. "Jace, I'm trying to jam their targeting systems. Hold on." The drones wavered, their lights flickering. Mara seized the moment, entering the final command. The tower surged with power. A shockwave rippled through the air, distorting the rain. The clouds above twisted violently, merging with the clear dome of the private estate. The partition shimmered, destabilizing. The drones regained focus. Override sequence 0:58. 1 minute. Mara braced herself as a drone swooped low, its rotors kicking up mud. A metallic arm extended, reaching for her. She grabbed a rock and hurled it at the sensor array. The drone jerked back, momentarily blinded. She returned to the terminal. Override sequence 0:22. The sky roared. The partition flickered like a dying flame. The blue dome over the billionaire's estate wavered, cracks forming along its edges. The drones closed in again. Mara typed the final line of code. Override sequence, midnight. Atmospheric partition, breached. Rainfall redistribution, active. The sky broke. Clouds surged across the boundary, spilling into the protected zone. Rain poured down on the manicured gardens, soaking the pristine lawns. The estate's artificial sunlight sputtered and died. For the first time in years, the privileged felt the storm. Mara stared upward, breathless. She had done it. A drone slammed into her from behind. Pain exploded across her ribs as she fell into the mud. The drone pinned her down, its restraints locking around her wrists. She struggled, but the machine was stronger. Her terminal lay a few feet away, its screen cracked but still glowing. A final message appeared. Jace, you did it. Get out of there. Please. She couldn't move. The drone tightened its grip. Another voice echoed from above. Cold, mechanical, triumphant. Unauthorized climatologist apprehended. Sky Consortium security en route. Mara closed her eyes as the rain washed over her face. Not the storm she had endured, but the storm she had freed. For a moment, she allowed herself to smile. 1 hour later. The interrogation room was sterile, brightly lit, and humming with quiet menace. Mara sat in a metal chair, her wrists bound to the armrests. Her clothes were still damp, her hair matted with mud. A single camera watched her from the corner. The door opened. A man entered, tall, impeccably dressed, his suit untouched by the storm. His hair was silver, his eyes sharp. He carried himself with the confidence of someone who owned more than land, more than wealth. He owned the sky. Dr. Elling, he said, taking a seat across from her. You've caused quite a disruption. Mara met his gaze. Good. He smiled thinly. You understand, of course, that your actions are illegal. Only because you made them illegal. He leaned back. Rainfall redistribution is a delicate matter. You've endangered lives. I've saved them. He sighed. Idealists always say that. Mara studied him. Which one are you? He raised an eyebrow. Pardon. Which billionaire? The Sky Consortium has 12 board members. I want to know which one I'm speaking to. He smiled again, this time with genuine amusement. You're speaking to the one who built the first microclimate dome. The one who proved the atmosphere could be owned. Mara's stomach tightened. Varen Hale. Correct. Varen Hale, the architect of privatized weather. The man who had turned climate into currency. He folded his hands. Your little stunt caused rainfall across 6 estates. Damaged crops. Flooded a golf course. One of my colleagues is furious. Good, Mara said again. He chuckled. You're bold. I admire that. She glared at him. I don't want your admiration. No, he said. You want justice, equality, rain for everyone. Yes. He leaned forward. That will never happen. Mara held his gaze. It already did. His smile faded. For a moment, silence filled the room. Then he stood. You will be detained until we determine the appropriate consequences. In the meantime, your movement will be dismantled. Your friend Jace will be found. Mara's pulse quickened. Leave him out of this. Varen paused at the door. You brought him into this. The door closed behind him. Mara exhaled slowly, her mind racing. She had expected retaliation, but not this quickly. Not this personally. She needed to escape. She needed to warn Jace. She needed to finish what she started. The rain outside intensified, pounding against the facility's reinforced windows. The sky was changing, and she wasn't done yet. Part 2. Mara waited until the footsteps faded down the corridor before she tested the restraints. They were magnetic clamps, standard consortium security tech, but the mud still caked on her sleeves had seeped into the joints. She twisted her wrist sharply. The clamp sparked, protesting. Another twist. The left shackle loosened. She froze, listening. No alarms. No footsteps. She worked on the right shackle, grinding the mud deeper into the mechanism. It clicked open with a soft metallic sigh. She stood, her legs trembling from the drone impact. The room was empty except for the camera in the corner, its red light blinking steadily. She approached it, staring directly into the lens. You can't own the sky forever, she whispered. Then she grabbed the metal chair, lifted it with both hands, and slammed it into the camera. The lens shattered. Sparks rained down. The lights flickered. She moved to the door. Locked. But the panel beside it was old, older than the rest of the facility. a relic from before the privatization wave. She pried off the cover, exposing a simple circuit board. She crossed 2 wires with the metal leg of the chair. The door slid open. The hallway beyond was dim, lit by emergency strips along the floor. The storm outside still hammered the building, its fury echoing through the walls. Mara stepped into the corridor, her breath steady, her mind sharp. She needed to find an exit. She needed to find Jace. She needed to finish what she started. The facility. The Sky Consortium's detention complex was built like a maze, sterile corridors, reinforced doors, and surveillance nodes embedded in the ceiling. But Mara had studied its layout months ago, back when she first began planning her rebellion. She moved quickly, avoiding the main hallways, slipping through maintenance passages and storage rooms. She passed a window and paused. Outside, the storm she had unleashed was still raging. Rain hammered the glass, running in rivulets down the reinforced pane. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the distant estates. Once serene, now drenched and chaotic. She felt a strange mix of triumph and sorrow. She had given people rain, but she had also given them chaos. She forced herself onward. Jace's message. Her terminal had been confiscated, but she still had the small emergency transponder sewn into her coat lining. She pressed it, activating a one-way signal. If Jace was listening, he would know she was alive. She hoped he was listening. Security patrol. Voices echoed from around the corner. Mara ducked into a side room, pressing herself against the wall. 2 guards walked past, their boots thudding against the floor. Override lasted longer than expected, one said. Consortium's furious, the other replied. Hale wants her transferred to Central. Think she'll talk? Doesn't matter. They'll make an example of her. Their voices faded. Mara exhaled slowly. She needed to reach the outer levels before they initiated the transfer. Central was a fortress. Once she was inside, escape would be impossible. She slipped back into the hallway. The power hub. She reached the facility's power hub, a circular room filled with humming generators and blinking consoles. She approached the main terminal, scanning the interface. If she could trigger a localized blackout, she could slip out during the confusion. She typed commands into the console, bypassing the basic security protocols. The system resisted, but she pushed harder, exploiting a vulnerability she had discovered years ago. The lights dimmed. The generators groaned. Then the entire facility plunged into darkness. Alarms blared. Mara ran. The chase. Red emergency lights flickered along the floor, casting the corridors in a hellish glow. Guards shouted orders, their voices echoing through the maze. Find her. Lock down the exits. She's heading for the outer levels. Mara sprinted down a hallway, her breath ragged. She turned a corner and froze. A drone hovered in front of her, its rotors humming softly. She dove to the side as it fired a net. The electrified filaments grazed her arm, sending a jolt through her nerves. She stumbled but kept moving. The drone pursued her, weaving through the corridor with predatory precision. She reached a stairwell and leapt down the steps, skipping entire flights. The drone followed, its rotors screaming. She burst through a door into a loading bay. Rain poured through the open entrance, wind howling like a living thing. She ran toward the storm. The drone fired again. The net struck her legs, wrapping around her calves. She fell hard, pain shooting up her spine. The drone descended, preparing to restrain her. Lightning flashed. A figure emerged from the shadows. Jace. He swung a metal pipe, smashing it into the drone sensor array. The machine jerked violently, its rotors sputtering. He struck again, shattering the casing. The drone crashed to the floor, sparks flying. Jace dropped the pipe and rushed to Mara, tearing the net from her legs. You're insane, he said, his voice shaking. You came, she whispered. Of course I came. He helped her to her feet. We need to move, he said. They'll send more. Mara nodded. Together they ran into the storm. The escape. The loading bay opened onto a muddy field, the rain turning the ground into a treacherous swamp. Mara and Jace sprinted across it, slipping and stumbling. Behind them, alarms blared from the facility. Searchlights swept the field. Drones launched from the roof, their rotors slicing through the rain. Jace pointed toward a cluster of trees. Cover! They dove into the foliage just as a drone passed overhead, its spotlight cutting through the darkness. Mara pressed herself against the trunk of a tree, her breath shallow. Jace leaned close. They'll sweep the area. We need to reach the river. The river's flooded, Mara said. Exactly. They won't expect us to use it. She nodded. They moved through the trees, staying low, avoiding the searchlights. The storm intensified, thunder shaking the ground. The river roared nearby, swollen with the redistributed rainfall. They reached the bank. The water was violent, churning with debris. Jace looked at her. We jump. Mara hesitated. We might not survive. We won't survive if we stay. She took a deep breath. Okay. They clasped hands and jumped. The river. The current seized them instantly, dragging them downstream with brutal force. Mara fought to keep her head above water, gasping for air between waves. Jace held on to her, his grip iron-tight. The river slammed them against rocks, pulled them under, spat them back out. Mara's lungs burned. Her vision blurred. But they kept moving. The storm raged overhead, rain pounding the surface like fists. Lightning illuminated the banks, trees bending under the wind, debris swirling in the flood. Mara felt herself slipping. Jace pulled her up. Stay with me, he shouted over the roar. She nodded weakly. The river carried them for what felt like hours, though it was only minutes. Finally, the current weakened, depositing them onto a muddy shore. Mara crawled onto the bank, coughing violently. Jace collapsed beside her, gasping for breath. They lay there for a long moment, letting the rain wash over them. Then Jace sat up. We need to move, he said. They'll track the river. Mara nodded, forcing herself to stand. Her body ached, her ribs throbbed, but she was alive, and the sky was still broken. The safe house. They reached an abandoned farmhouse on the outskirts of the public zone. The roof was partially collapsed, the windows shattered, but it offered shelter from the storm. Inside, Jace lit a small lantern. Mara sat on the floor, her back against the wall, her breath still uneven. Jace knelt beside her. Let me see your ribs. She lifted her shirt slightly. Bruises bloomed across her side, dark, angry marks from the drone impact. Jace winced. You need medical attention. No, she said. We can't risk it. He hesitated, then nodded. Mara looked at him. You shouldn't have come. I wasn't going to let them take you. She smiled faintly. You're a terrible strategist. And you're a terrible martyr. They sat in silence for a moment, listening to the storm. Finally, Jace spoke. The override. It's still active. Mara's eyes widened. How long? Hours. Maybe more. The consortium scrambling. They didn't expect the breach to cascade. Mara felt a surge of hope. Rain was falling across drought zones. Reservoirs were filling. Farmland was drinking deeply for the first time in years. She had done more than she expected. Jace continued. But they'll fix it. They'll rebuild the partitions. They'll tighten security. I know. He looked at her. So what now? Mara stared at the lantern, its flame flickering. We break the sky again, she said softly. Jace exhaled. You're serious? Yes. He nodded slowly. Then we need allies. We have them, Mara said. People saw the rain. They'll want more. Jace leaned back against the wall. This is going to get worse before it gets better. I know. He looked at her, his expression softening. You changed something today. Mara closed her eyes. Not enough. The bittersweet turn. The storm began to calm, the rain softening into a gentle drizzle. Mara stood at the broken window, watching the clouds drift across the sky. The world felt different, alive, unpredictable, free. But she knew it wouldn't last. The consortium would rebuild. They would hunt her. They would tighten their grip on the sky. She felt Jace's presence beside her. "You did something impossible," he said. Mara shook her head. "I did something temporary. Temporary can still matter." She turned to him. "We need to make it permanent." He nodded. "Then we start tomorrow." Mara looked at the sky one last time. The rain fell softly, like a promise. She didn't know how long it would last, but she knew she would fight for every drop. Part 3. Morning came slowly, dragging a pale gray light across the broken farmhouse. The storm had passed, leaving behind a world washed clean but unsettled. Mara stood outside, her boots sinking into the wet earth, watching the clouds drift lazily overhead. The sky looked almost normal, patchy, uneven, alive. Jace joined her, rubbing sleep from his eyes. "They'll be looking for us." "They already are," Mara said. He nodded. "Then we should move." But Mara didn't move. She kept staring at the sky, as if searching for something hidden in the shifting clouds. Jace followed her gaze. "You're thinking about the next breach." "Yes." He sighed. "We need more than a breach. We need a collapse." Mara turned to him. "We need to break the system so thoroughly they can't rebuild it." Jace hesitated. "That's ambitious." "It's necessary." He studied her face. Tired, bruised, determined. "Then we need to find the others." The network. The resistance wasn't a formal organization. It was a loose web of climatologists, engineers, farmers, and ordinary citizens who had grown tired of watching the wealthy sculpt perfect skies while the rest of the world drowned or starved. Jace activated a portable relay, sending encrypted signals across the public zones. Within minutes, replies trickled in: coordinates, safe houses, offers of help. Mara scanned the messages. "They're ready." "They're scared," Jace corrected. "But they're willing." Mara nodded. "Fear is useful. It means they understand what's at stake." They packed what little they had and left the farmhouse behind. The journey. They traveled through the public zones, moving from safe house to safe house, meeting with resistance members. Some were scientists who had once worked for the consortium before being pushed out. Others were farmers whose land had turned to dust under years of drought. Others were simply angry, angry at the sky, angry at the inequality, angry at the idea that weather could be owned. Mara spoke to them all. "We can break the partitions," she said. "Not just breach them. Collapse them." "How?" someone asked. "By overloading the atmospheric control grid," Mara explained. "If we synchronize multiple nodes, we can force the system to redistribute weather globally." "Redistribute?" a farmer echoed. "Like, everywhere?" "Yes." "Won't that cause chaos?" "Yes," Mara said. "But controlled chaos. Natural chaos. The kind the world used to have." Some nodded. Others hesitated. Jace stepped forward. "The consortium will retaliate. They'll hunt us. They'll try to rebuild. But if we do this right, they won't be able to." Silence followed. Then someone said, "Tell us what to do." The plan. The atmospheric control grid was vast. Thousands of nodes scattered across the world, most abandoned after privatization. The consortium used only a fraction of them, relying on high-tech partitions and proprietary climate engines. But the old nodes still existed, still connected, still waiting. Mara mapped out the plan on a cracked tablet. "We activate 12 nodes simultaneously," she said. "Each one pushes a redistribution pulse. The pulses converge, destabilizing the partitions. Once the partitions collapse, the climate engines will overload. And then?" someone asked. "Then the sky resets." Jace added, "We'll need teams at each node, coordinated timing, and we'll need to avoid detection." "That won't be easy," someone muttered. "No," Mara agreed. "But it's possible." They spent days preparing, gathering equipment, repairing old terminals, studying weather patterns. Mara felt a strange mixture of hope and dread. She knew the plan could work. She also knew it could fail catastrophically. But she had no choice. The sky had to be freed. The first node. Mara and Jace took the northern node, a rusted tower perched on a cliff overlooking a dried-out valley. The air was hot, dry, suffocating. The ground below was cracked like old pottery. Mara connected her terminal to the tower's interface. The screen flickered, then lit up with diagnostic data. Node status: dormant atmospheric. Link weak. Override potential moderate. Jace checked his watch. Teams are in position. Mara typed commands, waking the node from its long sleep. The tower groaned, its circuits humming weakly. Pulse ready, she said. Jace activated the relay. All teams, prepare for synchronization. Voices crackled through the relay. Tense, determined. Ready. Standing by. Pulse charged. Node online. Mara took a deep breath. On my mark, she said. 3, 2, 1. Now. She pressed the command. The tower surged with power. Lightning arced across the sky. The pulse launched. The collapse begins. Across the world, 11 other pulses fired simultaneously. The atmospheric grid shuddered, its ancient circuits awakening. The pulses converged, forming a massive wave of energy that rippled through the sky. The partitions flickered. The climate engines sputtered. The consortium's perfect weather domes trembled. Mara watched the sky crack open. Clouds swirling violently, pressure gradients shifting, temperature zones collapsing. It's working, Jace whispered. But then the relay crackled. Node 4 is under attack. Drones incoming. We're losing power. Hold the pulse. Hold it. Mara's heart raced. We need to stabilize the grid. She typed commands, forcing the northern node to compensate for the failing one. The tower groaned, its circuits straining. The sky roared. The partitions began to collapse. But then, the relay screamed with static. Node 4 is down. Repeat, Node 4 is down. Mara froze. Without all 12 pulses, the collapse would be incomplete. The system would destabilize, but not reset. The consortium could rebuild. Unless, Mara, Jace said softly, we can push a secondary pulse. It'll overload the tower, she said. It'll finish the collapse. It'll kill us. Jace met her gaze. We knew this might happen. Mara stared at the terminal. The tower circuits were already overheating. A secondary pulse would destroy it, and likely them. But the sky would be free. She typed the command. The final pulse. The tower screamed as the secondary pulse charged. Sparks flew from the circuits. The ground shook. Jace grabbed her hand. The relay crackled with voices. What's happening? Pulse spike detected. Is that Mara's node? God, she's going to overload it. Mara ignored them. She pressed the command. The tower exploded with light. The pulse launched. Massive, violent, beautiful. It surged into the sky, merging with the others, completing the collapse. The partitions shattered. The climate engines died. The sky reset. Clouds formed naturally for the first time in years, drifting, merging, breaking apart. Rain fell where it wanted. Sunlight pierced through gaps. Wind shifted unpredictably. The sky was alive. Mara felt the shockwave hit her. She fell. Aftermath. She woke hours later, lying in the mud at the base of the ruined tower. Her body ached. Her ribs screamed. Her vision blurred. Jace lay beside her, unconscious but breathing. The sky above was chaotic. Patchy clouds, uneven sunlight, distant storms. Imperfect, unpredictable, free. Mara smiled weakly. She had done it. But she knew the cost. The consortium would hunt her. The world would struggle to adapt to natural weather again. Some would curse her. Others would praise her. The sky would not be kind, but it would be honest. Jace stirred beside her. "We're alive," he whispered. "Barely," Mara said. He looked at the sky. "It's beautiful. It's real." They sat together, watching the clouds drift. The world was changing. Slowly, painfully, but changing. Mara felt a bittersweet ache in her chest. Loss, hope, fear, triumph, all tangled together. She didn't know what came next, but she knew she would face it, under a sky no one owned. This is the end of the sci-fi story, The Sky Bought Out. Leave a like if you enjoyed the story, and subscribe for more sci-fi stories. Thanks for listening.